Claim they lie riding, but I know that they ain't. Ride or die. I go hard in the paint, yeah, homie, I'm a saint. Ride or die.
And you have a debate coming up
Oh, yeah.
in like a month. I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, that's right. With a Muslim guy who thinks he can, I guess, use the Muslim God as to justify or ground the necessary preconditions for all intelligibility. But it'll be an interesting discussion. We'll see what happens. I haven't researched him yet, so I don't know. We'll get to it.
He had a conversation with James White,
And how'd
Trinity
that go?
versus Tawhid.
Yeah, the oneness. Yeah, but there's problems. Like I had a debate with Shabir Ali, and I asked him about certain areas of comparison, and Shabir just admitted he didn't have answers. He actually admitted it on in our debate. And there are problems with the Tawhid issue in what's called the static mind problem, and also uh, the nature of God in communion is not possible until something other than him becomes reality. Then he can have interaction. And that's a challenge to the idea of the sufficiency and aseity of such a being. Furthermore, the Tawhid would mean one is ultimate, not one in plurality simultaneously ultimate, as in the Trinitarian concept. And one ultimate is a problem with the philosophically and logically with the idea of how the one idea of actuality uh, manifests in particulars. It's a sophisticated discussion. I don't know if this guy will be up for it. We'll see what happens. So
I've never heard of that static minds argument. Could you maybe give me like the very
sure,
basic kind of dummy down version for me?
sure. Dummy down version is good because um, that's what I like. That's what that works for me. So let's imagine that God is one person, one mind, one everything in exactness, no Trinitarianism, no interaction, no reciprocity, just himself. All right. Does this God know everything? Well, in Islam, yes, God knows everything. All right. If he knows everything, does he know all his own thoughts? Well, of course. Well, wait a minute. Here's a question. Can he contemplate? Can such a being contemplate? To muse and to think about what he already knows? Because if he already knows himself exhaustively because he knows all things, then contemplation is a moot issue. He wouldn't contemplate about what he already knows because he already knows what he contemplate. So the implication is he's doing nothing. Static mind. Because he already knows everything eternally that he would think or do, so he doesn't have to go through it because he already knows everything. On a static mind problem. Makes sense?
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you're saying or implying through deduction that the God of Islam or any of these other oneness type gods that deny a Trinity are inherently narcissistic.
Well, it's just there's a problem that would exist if we think a lot in these lines. And all a Muslim can do is, at best, to say, well, we just don't know what God is. And so, therefore, it doesn't apply. But that doesn't work. You can't say that. If you don't know what God is, as Muslims like to say, there's a tawhid, and then there's another term. He means he's so completely different than other in an Arabic word. And I used to know it, and I forgot it again. Dang, I hate that. I forget it every now and then. But uh, if they say, well, you can't know, well, then if you can't know God, then you can't talk about it. But if he reveals himself as he supposedly in that false book called the Quran, then let's get to know him. Let's see what he says. If he says he knows all things, he knows all things eternally, then can he contemplate his own existence? Well, no, because he already knows what he'd be contemplating. It's kind of a catch-22. You see, if he knows everything, he can't think about what he knows because he already knew from eternity he'd be thinking about it. So why think? What does he do? Nothing. The implication is static mind. Now let's just say he has to think about what he knows. Well, that's a problem because that would imply he doesn't know everything because he has to think about what he knows to either gain knowledge or rearrange categories and ideas in his mind. But that would mean he didn't know everything. That's a problem. If he didn't know everything, then how can we trust him? So you see the problem? I call it the static mind problem. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you answering that.
Yeah, I think this is where they struggle in their. I believe they call it taqweed. I don't know if that was the word you were looking for or not. Matt,
Tawhid
the
is
unification or
oneness.
oneness of God in Islam.
Yeah, Tawhid is oneness. And then Taqiyya is similar in that it means lying is okay in certain contexts. But
Yeah.
there's a word that means he's unknowable and completely other. And we have the same concept in Christianity, but God solves it by revealing himself to us in the person of Jesus. And so now we can know him. And since we're made in his image, then we can understand God further. But in Islam, how are we made? And what's the Islamic God like? Here's one of the things I ask Muslims. I say, so is the Old Testament true? And they'll say, well, yes and no. Because it talks about Abraham and Moses, correct? I say, yeah. So is every single word of the Old Testament corrupted? Because they believe the Bible's corrupted, even though it's not. But they say that. Is every single word corrupted? Because, well, no. So when God, his name is used like 9,000 times in the Old Testament, is every single one of those corrupted? Well, no. Okay, then we know the name of God, Yahweh. Why is it the Quran never mentions Yahweh's name?
Yeah, I think the unknowable God view of Allah is called the the mukhalafa the mukhalafa of God.
Okay, I could. I'm going to find a Muslim scholar who wouldn't mind answering questions. Doesn't have to be challenged and mocked, but okay, what's this? What's that? What's your position? What's that? And go through it. And of course, I would be using information against Islam because I believe, and I do, I believe Islam is is falsifiable. That means it can be proven to be false.
Hey
Anyway,
Matt,
yeah,
I have a question for you.
sure.
Um, I was I was an atheist, and now I'm a deist, and I would like to interested in you know maybe learning more about the Bible, but
Sure.
I still have kind of all those some of that atheist mentality in my head towards the Bible, so it makes it hard to even read it. I don't know if you have any advice.
Yeah, repent and believe whatever I tell you. How about that for a start? What do you think?
That's pretty good.
That works. Always trust a guy named
Yeah,
Slick.
that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And if you have a hard time with that one, just believe the first line of the Bible, and then the rest. If you believe that first line of the Bible, all the rest follows quite easily. Just
So
start
let,
with the
let,
first one.
so let me ask you. What I mean, I'm not attacking you. I'm not going to cross-examine you. I'm not going to make you try to make you feel bad or anything like that. Okay. So there's no malice here towards you. So what is it that's you don't trust about the Bible or whatever it is, and maybe we can tackle some of it.
It was the usual atheist talking points, the mean God, the biblical slavery, the flood, all the
Let's talk about
killing
one at a time.
babies.
Let's talk about one. The
Well,
mean God.
Matt, it's hard to hear you right now. Your mic sounds distant. It's unusually distant, like you're at
Okay,
the end
hold
of a
on.
hallway or something.
Let me check something
That's a
here. It
lot
might just
better.
be that
You just fixed it.
I think. Yeah, I know why. Hold on.
Okay.
Wait a minute. How come that's not working? Oh, input right there. There. Now it'll work.
Perfect.
They
You
got
fixed it. 100%.
right. Okay. All right. So when atheists say, "Well, God's mean," it's like, uh,
He is. And what's the standard of meanness? Because they're saying he's mean, therefore it's not good. Okay, so are the atheists in contact with a universal truth principle or moral principle? Because this is a concept that needs to be examined, and it's very important. An atheist can say, I don't like the God of the Bible. Okay, you don't like the God of the Bible. That's it. And when I meet people who say that, I go, okay, now what do you want to talk about? But what if an atheist says the God of the Bible is morally wrong for ABC? I say, wait a minute. Okay, now we got something to talk about. And it's this principle works in all kinds of things with atheists. All right, so let's say he's morally wrong about action ABC, action A. We'll just call it action A. Okay, so how do you know God is wrong? What is your standard by which you judge that he or any action recorded in the Bible is wrong? Because you're saying it's a moral thing. So that means that there must be a standard that applies morally to God and to you and to others. If it only applies to the God of the Bible and everything else doesn't apply, well, that doesn't make any sense. What the atheist is doing without realizing it is saying, well, I'm in privileged to be able to know what true morality really is. And I'll tell you about it and how God is wrong. That's what they're actually saying without realizing it. I say, well, wait, where'd you get your moral standard? Because they can say, I don't like uh, occurrence A. That's valid. They don't like it. It doesn't mean it's true or false or good or bad. They just don't like it. But to say occurrence A is morally wrong, now they are saying that it's a universal principle. Where are they getting this universal principle from? That's the idea. So they say he's mean, or he's wrong for whatever, or he ought not, or he ought to. Then what they're saying is they have a standard that they are privileged to have, and they can apply it to God. So what I'll do is I'll say, where do you get this standard from? What justifies it as being the right one? And this is where the wheels come off their cart. And they don't want to talk to me much anymore after that for some unknown reason. Make sense?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that makes sense. I would, uh, when I was an atheist, I guess all I could really say would be, that's what I feel. Maybe that's from
Hmm.
evolution or some inherent, thing.
I go hard in the paint, yeah, homie, I'm a saint. Ride or die.